everybody else, before we get into it, please use the chat for questions. This is more fun when there's questions, right? Like, I have a general theme that I like to get into with these things when I talk to people one-on-one. And the theme is that we don't know what we don't know when it comes to, interviewing with an industry that's new. It's really hard. I'm sure you've all worked at it. Give me some sort of emoji if you've worked at a company and you had to dig into an industry for the first time, and then the more you learned about it, the more that you were surprised or disappointed or found that it was more complicated, or your company maybe wasn't handling it in the right way. And so, yeah, any other emojis, even if it's just a laugh or a heart or something, I'd like to know that people are there. Thank you. Feel seen, feel heard. Okay. So my goal was Chitra came to brunch and we were chatting, and just, the security space for me is a complicated industry to wrap my head around, and because I don't work in it. And so we've worked with multiple security startups in the past. We work with a lot of DevOps and developer tools and infrastructure products. And if you just aren't familiar with the space, it's hard to know where to start. And so, Chitra, I think my main question for you, and I'll kind of keep following up and asking additional clarifying questions, but tell us a little bit about your journey getting into this industry, and then let's transition that into things you wish you knew about the industry, like based on what you know now. And I will clarify and follow up as we go. Sound good? And then, yeah, chat away. Chat. Post in the chat if you have anything. Okay. All right. Go for it.
Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. So my name is Chitralekha, by the way, and I'm currently working at Sonic.io, which is a startup in the zero trust security sector, and it provides secure remote access to enterprise infrastructure. Prior to Sonic, I was working with Cisco in the SD-WAN team. And prior to that, I have spent around 5 years with Symantec in their web security team. And that was my journey, starting point to getting into the network and security domain. Before that, I have worked in various domains in retail, supply chain management, and also shipping logistic domain. And throughout my journey, I am being a developer, backend developer. My tech stack probably includes all the cloud, Java, Python. Given the startup, I've also started learning on the front end because I had to wear multiple hats. So I have to do bug fixes. So I have started with my front end learning as well. So that was about me. Now, given a point of security, when I entered, when I joined, I joined Blue Coat, which got acquired by Symantec. So I was not aware of what I was doing, what product I was working. And all I was doing is that I'm coding something. And but I always had that curiosity that I should know why am I doing this, so that I can think from the perspective of design, like what is the customer requirement or what is this product being used for. So that curiosity in me made me look into this domain. And as long in my journey, I kept on working on different kinds of products of web security and the cloud security. I got to know about certain domains. So if you consider security as one of the vertical, then there are multiple domains, horizontal domains onto the security side. I'm still not an expert, still in my learning journey, but to carve out the domains on the security side, right? So there could be multiple sector, like you can have cloud security like when you're going to the internet and what you're downloading and what you're sending to the internet has to be validated. So that's kind of acting as a broker between you and internet, proxy between you and internet. So that's cloud security. Then you have endpoint protections, like the agents, which are like if you are using your company laptop and there are agents running which do the scannings for you. You might have heard about antivirus scans, major McAfee, if anybody has used it. So that's like endpoint security agent running your laptop, making sure you're not downloading or working. Is there any malicious job running on your system? Then you have uh, SIEM, which is the system event management and monitoring. And in SIM is being there from quite a long time, but now it has been introduced on the cloud also as a security, which is the domain is more about how you, if you are like logs, a lot of applications generate logs, right? And applications are being accessed by thousands and millions of users over internet. So they detect through logs if there is any threat being given, or through logs, making it more intelligent to understand the user behavior, any anomalies on those behaviors, and generating alert on those behaviors, like monitoring any behavior anomaly. Then there is a section called data loss prevention. So, and I think you must know, your companies must be having all these policies that through your email you cannot share any .exe file or any .java file or any compiled binary files. So those are the rules which prevent any intellectual property of the company being shared. And we have seen this breach, and it's not like hacking of your system, but this breach where certain founders or founding team members move from one team to another team and taking away their work with them, which is kind of an intellectual property for that particular startup and company. So there is DLP. Then you have another, nowadays what's coming with GDPR, and there are a lot of compliance which are needed by many tech startups. You have to be compliant with GDPR, you have to be compliant with HIPAA, and there are now that the California Consumer Privacy Act has come, so you have to be compliant with these. Now, a startup can be in a different security domains, but at the end, they have to be compliant with their infrastructure, how their infrastructure is there to these policies. And there are startups helping other startups to do so. So there are Vanta, which does the PCI certifications for you. So all they do is that they look at your infrastructure, you give them a setup, they run some tests around it, they run some penetration testing around it, and they comply that, okay, this particular product is compliant according to these policies and compliance rules. Now, like I can talk about various like threat detection, threat intelligence, and AI coming into the picture now to identify these, intelligently identifying. So usually security works on the time when you're being hacked, already being hacked. So you see the data, how it has been done, and then you prevent it. So you come up with a incident response process. Now with the AI in the picture, what they are trying to do is that they can detect it before even happening, the before even event has happened. So that's like threat intelligence and detecting. So this is what the security domain is like about. Did I get it right? Your question?
I think so. So we have a couple, like two paths of questions
Mhm.
in the chat, right? I had my questions more on the Vanta side, right? Like, what does somebody look for when they're interviewing with a company to tell if they're on the right track or successful? But we're also getting some questions in the chat that I think we should do first, which are, let's say you're interviewing for a security company. What are the key things you should brush up on to seem, not to be an industry expert but to, how did Aaron say this? To just, come across strong and aware of like security practices that every engineer should know. Does that?
Yeah, make sense.
Start?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So, so the first thing which I do is that if I'm interviewing with a company, I look at the team I'm interviewing with and what product are they working on. So then with the product, we can do our research work. What is the product about? How does it line in the security? If you map it in the graph of horizontal domain, where does it lie? And then you can read up or brush up on that particular product or domain, that what is exactly that product is doing, how you are trying to. So what will be your role if you are a software developer there, right? From a developer's perspective, knowing the domain helps you understand and design the problem better. But we are being given more technical challenge, right? We have to solve, okay, I have this Windows machine which is talking to Linux, and then I have to develop a shortcut so that the Windows shortcut gets converted to Linux. So this is more technical and not security, but then the company is all about giving you secure access. And I'm talking from my experience. So the domain knowledge will give you what that team is working on, how much information, what product are they working on, what problem are they solving in that domain, so that when you interview with them, you can cross question them on problems like, okay, you're solving, like, okay, I'll give you one experience. I recently got contacted by one company in the security for building security. Now, building security now with the culture of hybrid and remote in place, there are less people going into buildings. There are less companies owning these facilities. So how would the business grow, right? What are your thoughts on what is the roadmap of the product? Because whatever you're building might be the usage is coming down, or the consumer point of view, it is coming down. So understanding the product gives you a better idea how to question them on the interview, and that also reflects that you have done your homework of understanding what the team does, and it gives a better experience and better to the interviewer as well, that the person is invested in the team. I hope, did I answer? So there was one mentioned about blockchain and crypto space.
I think I don't think we should get into that. I think that because that's almost like a little bit tangential, and I want to make sure we get the key like mini quotes out of you around like what you should know. So I'm seeing some discussion around OWASP. Can you talk through what that is and what people should know, and any other resources like that that are also kind of quick wins?
Yeah, so OWAPS and CISSP and all these training materials, it talks about, so there are various sectors. It talks about how are you securing your product, are you running agents on it, which like there are multiple, so there was one company called, I'm forgetting the name, it was closer to my semantic office. So they run, agents runs on their code, and they figure out if there is any memory leak, or if there is any, because these memory leaks are very easy to hack, especially byte overflow or buffer overflow, which is a common in the C codes. So these also OWAPS, CISSP training, they cover the whole entire security domain, right from your malicious antivirus, from how your code is secure, what firewalls should have, how a hacker can enter your firewall, man in the middle attack, and all those. So these are the training list. Now, I would say if you're going for a developer role, you might not require these certifications. But if you're going more as a security engineer role, where you're joining a company as a security engineer, you need to have these certifications, because as a security engineer, you are securing the perimeter of your company. So you're making sure your company have this. So basically the CISO group, the security office group, they keep on investing on different products. They look out, they do POCs with different products to secure the perimeter. And they need people who understands what is needed to secure your infrastructure. So in that terms, you need to understand what are the threats you're looking for, what kind of property are you securing, whether it is the code or you're building your cloud Kubernetes container security, if your container has endpoint encryption. All those things comes under security certification, and that is more of, I would say, in security engineer role or DevSecOps role, where you need to know about these certifications. But from a software developer, which I'm a software developer, the certification is not needed, but it helps me understand the domain more. So it helps you spot the problem across different domains. And once you spot the problem, you can come up with the solution, or you know that what is the pain point of the customers, and that's how you breach the gap So from a developer point of view, it's good to invest in these trainings, but I would not say it's mandatory one.
Let's say you're interviewing with a security startup, and say these a little bit slowly because I want to cut them up. What, like 1 to 3, what are really good questions you can ask during the interview process to sound really smart, even if you don't know much about this?
Okay, so first good question could be, if you are going for a development role, what are the security policies are there for your infrastructure, code as infrastructure? So are you running your code on your laptops, or are you running your code on a secure development environment? So basically, is there any secure development environment? So secure development environment by means that you don't run your code, you don't have your code on your local machines. It's somewhere in the cloud. You can access it only that those VMs or machines only with certain username, password, restriction policies around that, and you're not able to copy anything out. So you're not able to like download any intellectual property. So that could be one, whether it's secure development environment is there or not. Then you can ask about if you're going for a site reliability or in the infrastructure team, you can ask about how your parameters are secure, what defenders are you using, are you in cloud, if you're using cloud, which cloud are you using, and then what all tools of the cloud are you using. Microsoft provides you defender. There are identity management is one of the sectors where you can see what identity provider are you using, how is it helping with your single sign-on, how does it prevent access, what policies are you using. So that gives you, in terms of, I have more knowledge in terms of secure access because that's my domain of what I have been worked on. So I usually, if I'm interviewing for the team, I ask these such questions for it. Like when I interviewed with Cisco last year, so it was not a security team; it was more of a networking team for SD-WAN devices. But then I asked, how are these devices being secure? How is these configurations on these devices are being pushed? How whoever is pushing is a right entity accessing the device or not. So from my perspective and my experience, those were the questions I asked, and I cracked Cisco, so I hope that made the difference. Other than that, I would prefer, like, for a developer role, you don't ask security questions. It's just that you're interviewing for the security company, you tend to understand. One good question would be also to understand and ask, what problem are you solving? And the problem you're solving, how much pain was that for the customer? So you see, one such problem in security is that when you're provisioning any such applications, right? The provisioning takes a lot of time, sometimes even more than a month for bigger companies, because changing your entire infra accessing, like you're using certain tool, your users and employees are used to using, let's say, Citrix for their day-to-day activity of developing and coding and whatever, finance, sales, anything. Now you're moving away from this particular tool or domain to some certain security startup, right? Which is giving you a secure access. The first question, and from a customer's perspective, right, would be, what is my benefit if I move here? Is it saving my time? Is it saving my money or not? So if I'm interviewing for the security startup, I know that they are in this secure access domain. I will ask that, how are you solving this problem, and how are you different from what other market solutions are there or market players are there?
Chitra, there's some really good questions in the channel, or like in the chat, that I actually sort of want you to bust through, but I want you to also talk slowly because you tend to talk really fast. I know we've talked about this before, so I want you, no, you're okay. We have subtitles. It's going to be totally fine. But I want you to like think in quotes so that I can post your quotes after about like takeaways. I just wanted to give you that note. But the questions in the chat, and so I would say for the last 10 minutes, keep your eye on the chat and let's try to cover these as well as we can. One was, do you think the cybersecurity market is saturated? I had sort of asked a similar question, like, what can startups do that big companies can't? I think that, May, I'm kind of trying to think about how to simplify your question, so give me a second. And then Robbie's question is about security best practices and some easy ways people can demonstrate this knowledge. May, if you want to help me like break that down a little bit, that would be helpful. Yeah, totally. But like a really, like I'm trying to get a little soundbite, so like simplify it for me. Sound good, Chitra? You want to bust through those too?
Yeah. So the first question, someone asked, certs are dollar. I don't know what that question is. Do you think the cybersecurity market is saturated? In other words, is the market opportunity for startups to do big corporation have it cornered? I won't say it is saturated. Should I take that question or should we? Okay. So I won't say it is saturated, but given the AI boom, definitely the market or the investment on the security side is less. Also, a lot of companies, like I'm talking about the access and all, the CISO team, our experience with my startup, what I have known, that CIO, the IT team, has more budget than the CISO teams to try out new products. Now, if you are going to CISO teams, there is a lot of ownership if comes onto the team to try out new product and say, oh, yeah, this is the right product. Because if you get breached or anything, so it's a lot of ownership on trying out new things. And that leap of faith or risk is something which stops a lot of companies to go from big player to the small player. So so what happens is the big company will never, like that trust, right? When you do a security, any startup, I believe, if you're going into the market and targeting whoever is your targeting target audience, especially for security startup, it is the enterprise sector, less of the consumer, more of the enterprise. There are consumer products also, banking and all they have, but on the enterprise side, the budget is little restricted. And also the ownership of taking the decision, okay, we are not going with this product, we'll go with this product, is a major risk, which stops a lot of companies trying it out. And I've experienced that in our companies as well, in my startup as well. So there are small market players who doesn't have a very tight infrastructure, and they themselves are growing, so they can try out new products, and they understand the trying of new products comes with that risk and building that trust. So that's how the security industry is right now. It's not saturated, but the budget is less. I would say the VCs are investing more on the AI side, on rather the innovations on the security side. And I might be wrong there, but that's the experience intake I have.
The question about certifications that you'd recommend could be good.
Sorry, about?
The question about what certifications would you recommend if you like have limited budget, you only have time for one or something short and sweet, what would you recommend?
I'm right now preparing there is a group called Women in Cybersecurity, and they are giving this CISSP training, which is more close to CISSP. So planning to get onto that. It's an investment and it needs like at least 10 hours a week of preparation. But CISSP is a good start there.
Love it. And then Robbie's question, you want to try that one? Easy ways for folks to demonstrate their knowledge of just security best practices.
Yeah, I think the ability to speak to security best. Yeah, so it says front end and back end. So when you're doing front end, you talk about not storing any private keys, right? A lot of people, how do you secure if you're talking to back end API, the communication? How is the front end and the back end API communication happening? what authentication model are they using? Are they still on the basic auth of username, password, or API key? Or they are on the OAuth 2.0 where they're using the access token, refresh tokens, and all to secure the communication between front end and back end. So this gives you an idea like, okay, the person who is designing this front end knows communication between this has to be secure enough. So you know how encrypted the traffic are, you are ensuring what common practices I have seen that in our developer, like we debug, we add log statements. And especially if you do front end, you can do DevTool. I don't know if many of you know, you can do go and look at inspect the source, right? And when you inspect the source, you will come across the log messages which is printing lot of sometimes printing information which is not needed. So all those security practices that you make sure your code doesn't leak out information. Another practice is that to communicate to these APIs through API keys and all, you should not store it in your Redact store or local memory. Always try to be secure. Get fetch from the vault. Any token if you're fetching. Always real time, not caching it. Any security information, any private keys or API keys should not be stored or cached. Should always be going to the server, taking all those. So from front-end perspective, making sure your communication is secure. From backend and infra perspective, so backend should make sure there are no memory leaks. Run your agents which look through your code, swaps monitor your whole code. It runs an agent, runs to the code. If you're doing any memory leak, if you're having any, they have some security practices, security policies, how the code should be, how modular your code is, and all those. So I'm forgetting the name of the company. I think Mobile Iron or we run an agent, and right now it's off of my mind. I'm not able to code that agent. We run that agent on our code base for that. From infra perspective, if you are deploying in cloud, right, make sure your it's protected. Whatever APIs or microservices or containers or VMs which you're deploying has. So if I talk in terms of microservices, it should always be authenticated, have IP restrictions, IP whitelisted, that the communication is, if it's an internal API, if you're not exposing, if your service does not expose to the world. So you should make sure that the IP whitelisting are there, and you have, so basically when you're talking to your VM, you have SSH, not just based on username, but you should have the keys, private keys, cert validation there. It's hard to crack. Username password is very common to crack. More on terms of infra, when you're giving access to your
I'm sorry to cut you off, but we are at time. So I just wanted to let Robbie ask that last question, and then I think we should probably wrap.
What I think May was saying.
No. Robbie's hand is raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to, sorry, thanks, Chitra. I wanted to clarify kind of what I was asking in that question. So I think these were all really good tips for security, but I guess more from a high level, if somebody's not interviewing for a security role, if they're just interviewing just to be a software engineer at a non-security place, obviously security is a concern for every company. What are the ways that a software engineer can kind of learn more about security and be able to speak to that, because it kind of gives an advantage in the interview process?
I would say to start with, every company needs identity management system, right? How you're giving access to your system. So the best place to start and easy to learn, and I think a lot of us as a software developer also does that, because we always create forms which do, you're giving access to certain identity, that you're this user, you have this role, and you are coming from this geolocation. So I'm giving access to this user on my system. So, and this is common for every company, right? You have to have an identity provider, right? You have to have a login to get into the system. So I think that would be, for me, I would be starting from there if I don't have any idea. But I do understand a little bit of understanding is that, okay, To get to the access or authentication, I have to provide my username and password. So how this identity sector works, because that touches everyone across, be it a mobile app or it's a web app or it's in the health sector. So if you are having a health record, right, so you will give those access only to that person records. So how are you making sure that the user identity is what they say? So this is a good place to start into the security domain. And in layman terms, we understand, all of us, I think, understands that what is identity and what identity makes the difference. So from a person who has no idea what these technical products are, I think identity should be a good place to start. Did I answer your question, or did I? You want more? Okay, yeah. No, they just
Love it. I feel like I almost want to take the recording, transcribe it, summarize, show you, and then grab the key bits and make sure everybody knows in Slack. Does that work for you?
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay, we'll really like cut it up and make it like, here are the things you need to know. And I think we got some good bites. So thank you so much for coming and doing this, and also like trying out this new format with me. Please let me know, anybody who came through, like if this format was helpful, what you wish we could do more of. And Chitra, we can always do a part 2 based on the missing questions, but I want to, as I mentioned, I just hired this editor, and I want to take your bites and make it really, really like punchy to follow, so that people know exactly, they're like interviewing for a security startup and they can be like, okay, I watched this video and I know what to do now. So thank you again so much, and we'll post as soon as we have a recording to share.
Thank you so much.
Also check out the chat before you jump, because people are saying really nice little stuff over here. So
yeah, thank you so much. Just before we go, somebody asked that the certifications are very expensive. Yeah. I just want to tackle that, because it is very expensive, and I have not taken those certifications. But if you keep following these Women in Tech or Women in Cybersecurity or any security forums, they give scholarship. I got my scholarship from Women in Cybersecurity. So just wanted to let people know that that's one of the
I think that's really good. I think you should go into the announcements channel and post a little follow-up about that, because I feel like that was one of the key takeaways, was like, here's a path that works. They offer scholarships. It's probably not something folks know. So if you just want to write a little bit after, we'll make sure to include it.
Yeah, sure.
Love it. Okay. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.